and he is going to be the next speaker. His name is Korey. He's hiding right here. Korey is a young man who did his PhD in psychology, clinical psychology, and then specialized in diabetes. So had training, initial training at University of Florida, and then moved on to Joslin, one of the best places a man can train in pediatric diabetes. And then after that, he moved on and worked in Cincinnati Children's Hospital, where he was working in a center that specializes in adherence to treatment in type 1 diabetes in children. They apparently have something like that in Cincinnati children. So we hired him to come and do something with us and try to build our program as well. And he joined us on January 1st of this year. And even in the past 2 months only, he's already written like 4 grants or something. He is extremely accomplished and very bright young man. And I'm very excited to have him on our team and to introduce him today. He still specializes in adherence in type 1 diabetes in teenagers. But every time I ask him to help me with a patient who's not adhering, he said he actually specializes in studying adherence. But he doesn't have a solution for it yet. So he's working on it. And today he's going to actually tell us a little bit about how you can live with diabetes and make the best out of it. Yeah. Accurate, yeah?
Good morning. It's almost lunchtime. So I want to thank Dr. Adib for the very nice introduction. Thank you for the job. I'm really excited to be in San Francisco and excited to be here with you all today. One of the other things that, in addition to my training and my work in diabetes, I have type 1 diabetes myself. I was diagnosed about 6 months after starting professional work in type 1 diabetes, and so I figured I'll just keep going. But what I'm going to talk about today, I don't feel like I'm projecting well. Is that better?
Yeah.
So I'm going to repeat everything I just said. So in terms of an overview of what I'll cover today, I'm going to talk about a couple of assumptions that guided this presentation. I'm going to talk about some evidence to support those assumptions, and then I'm going to leave you hopefully with 5 strategies for getting the most out of your life with diabetes, whether that's your own life, whether that's your child's life. And so let me start with these assumptions. The first one is that diabetes is integrated into your life or your child's life. It's not vice versa. We don't try and cram everything with life into diabetes. We take diabetes and we insert it and integrate it into your life. And as part of that, diabetes can be effectively managed and done so in order to promote some of the best health and psychosocial outcomes that you'd hope for. So these are the 2 assumptions guiding this entire presentation. So let's talk a little bit about the evidence for assumption 1. When you think about positive coping, we know that coping with and accepting a medical diagnosis is associated with better outcomes. So some examples of how someone might say something that would indicate positive coping. It might be, I have diabetes, but it doesn't define me. It's hard work, but diabetes can be managed. And I'm going to find ways to make diabetes work for me. These are all statements indicating positive coping, and ownership, and an acceptance of diabetes. In a recent paper published by the Yale group, they had 327 youth with type 1 diabetes and their parents answer questions about how they coped with and accepted type 1 diabetes. And I think this is an important statement that they note at the beginning of their discussion, which is they found the use of coping strategies such as acceptance, as well as engagement coping strategies such as problem solving, were linked with better self-management, so they took care of their diabetes better, and also with better adaptation, so psychosocial adjustment to the diagnosis. So across this huge sample of youth and their parents, we see accepting and owning and coping with diabetes as being a significant factor in how well diabetes is managed. So the first strategy I want to leave you with is accept your diabetes and own it. Now, I would probably be elbowing most of you in this room to get to the front of this line if there was a place where you could return your diabetes. So when I talk about accepting and owning it, it's also with the idea that if we could trade it in, we would. And that's okay. You also don't have to walk around with a huge sign that says I have diabetes and hooray and cheer for it. It's okay if you don't feel that way. But as part of effectively managing and having good outcomes with diabetes, you really do have to accept and own it. Now, it's hard for us to accept and own things when we don't understand them. So in order to do that, we need to educate ourselves. What you're doing here today is educating yourself in a different way than just waiting for information from your providers or from your team. You're seeking out information. Robin gave a good example of finding someone who has trained people to die with diabetes. So she sought that information out for herself. It's really important that you have a good understanding of diabetes and you educate yourself that way. And you talk with other people with diabetes. You learn a lot. You learn a lot about the science of diabetes, and you learn a lot about the art of diabetes management, the trial and error side of it. It's also hard to accept and own things that we don't like. And as we go throughout the talk, you'll hear some more examples of ways to try not to focus on the negative and to be a little more matter of fact about management. And also trying to find some meaning in your diabetes. What has diabetes done for you that's positive? And this may be hard for you to do, but for myself, I'm probably healthier now than I was prior to diagnosis as a young adult. I've got more passion for my work. It fuels what I want to do on a daily basis. So I've tried to find some ways that diabetes is meaningful in my life. And this is a way to accept and to own and to cope with it. So just a quick review. This assumption really focuses on making diabetes part of your life and not letting it run your life. And you can do that by these strategies we just mentioned, educating yourself, getting support, and using positive coping. And also trying to find ways to make meaning of diabetes. So to jump into the second assumption, and I'll spend most of the rest of the talk on this area, diabetes can be effectively managed to promote optimal health and psychosocial outcomes. And what I mean by that are both the short-term and long-term health outcomes associated with it, how healthy you are, how long you're going to live, all of those factors. And then from a psychosocial standpoint, having good quality of life, enjoying things from a social perspective, personal, emotional, that all of those are the outcomes that we're aiming for.